I remade a classic Halo game that you've probably forgotten about. And which game is that? Well, back in 2004, one of the greatest pieces of Halo media dropped. Okay, besides Halo 2. In February of that year, a user by the name of Bull posted a Flash game called Warthog Launch to the Halo fan site halo.bungie.org. For those of you that don't know what Flash games are, they're little games that used to run directly in your browser without having to download them. There were multiple online communities in the early 2000s built around them. Basically, they were what people my age used to do in the computer lab at school when we were supposed to be learning how to type. But I digress. I played a lot of those browser games when I was younger, and I remember Warthog Launch being one of many of those old games that I loved, but could never beat. You see, the gameplay of Warthog Launch is simple enough. You have 3 sliders, one determines the position of the hog, one's the position of the grenade pile underneath the hog, and the last one determines the amount of grenades, and your goal is to eliminate all of these floating purple guys in each level using only a single launch. Such a simple concept, but this can get pretty tricky. When Halo first came out, this guy named Randall Glass made one of the first viral videos that I remember, and it's just them messing around with the physics engine in Halo, making a sport out of launching the Warthog. Now I imagine this was Bull's inspiration for the Flash game Warthog Launch. I'd like to ask him myself, but that means I'd have to track him down based on his 20-year-old username, which seems unlikely. But surprisingly, I managed to get in touch and ask him about it.
So this video made by Randall was made before we got the game in Europe. So I was obsessively watching the Warthog Jump video like many, many times. It blew my mind that in a first-person game, you could have vehicles that behave that way. So that made a strong impression on me at that time. Yes.
And Bull took this concept and made it into an actual game. In the early 2000s, Bungie really went out of their way to embrace community fan projects like this, or Red vs. Blue. So much so that Bungie actually officially released this game on a disc. That's right, they put Warthog Launch on the Halo 3 limited edition disc a few years after the original release. Is there like any cool story about how that came to be?
That was a bit weird. I get an email asking like, "Hello, do you want to feature this on the Halo 3 limited edition bonus DVD?" They got my source code. I was paid in merch, so I got an Xbox 360 Elite and a bunch of games and controllers. Way delayed. I got the Halo 3 limited edition helmet, but with signatures all over it from the team because it was delayed by like months. So I didn't play Halo 3 at launch because I didn't have the console.
So now that Flash is discontinued and browser games aren't really a thing anymore, I thought this would be a fun little project to tackle. What does a 20-year-old browser game look like in 2024? Well, let's find out. I'm going with Unity as my game engine of choice for this project, just because it has great support for WebGL, which is a way to make games playable in a web browser, just like the original. So my first attempt at replicating the basic functionality of the game was really quick and simple. I made a white box prototype, just using primitives like cubes and planes to map out the general layout of the game. Once I had that, I used Unity's built-in physics system, so rigid bodies and box colliders, to simulate a launch. In the physics system, I was able to add an explosion force, they have a built-in thing for this, at the point where the grenades are under the Warthog, and then scale that force with the amount of grenades. Now this prototype is close enough, and we can fine-tune it later. For now, let's move on to getting some cool-looking graphics in here. Now, as with most early 2000s Flash games, the original game visuals were vector drawings, done directly in Flash. And you know what? These are honestly perfect as they are. But we're gonna reimagine this thing with 3D models. So I started scouring Sketchfab for some Halo models. I found this excellent Warthog model, which was a great start, but unfortunately it was missing the gun on the back. So I Frankensteined it together with a gun from another Warthog model, and here we go, this is our hog. I also found some Halo-specific grenades that someone made, and I got this rock pack from the asset store and started piecing together the environment for the game to take place in. I made a terrain and started placing some rocks to mimic the original game's layout, but using 3D elements instead. Now, there is one 3D model that I couldn't find. These floating purple guys, aka the Engineers, they're a pretty obscure Halo character actually. They were supposed to appear in the first Halo game, but they were cut at the last minute, and they didn't officially appear in any Halo game until Halo ODST, which was years later. Wait, so how did Bull know about Engineers back before anyone else did?
It was an accident, basically. So there was a Halo hacking community. It might still exist, I don't know. There were lists made out of memory addresses for different textures and models and everything in the game. The only thing I did then was look at these references and then use a hex editor to swap the memory addresses between models. And I'm like, oh, Engineer, what's this? Because they had a text label too. So I just put that in instead of a pistol bullet. And like, what on earth is this model? So it was sheer exploration of memory addresses.
You went on to make Warthog launch and have them as an enemy in it, which I just thought was cool. As a kid, I thought they were Purple Flood for some reason.
Well, they weren't in the game, so
yeah,
like officially.
Now, Sketchfab had a model rip of the Engineers from the original game because they were still in the game's files, just not in the game. However, according to Microsoft's rules surrounding fan-made projects using their IP, if I want to actually release this remake, then I can't use any assets that were ripped from the game. They had to be original creations. So since this was a pretty obscure character, my only choice really was to just do it myself. And I'm not much of a modeler, but I tried my best here. So, using Blender, I started with a sphere and slowly formed it into an Engineer. Then I textured it, rigged it, animated it, brought it into Unity, and now, look at this. We got an Engineer model. Isn't he cute? The prototype physics I made before didn't feel exactly right. And for a game about precision and geometry, it didn't match the original close enough. After playing with the original Warthog launch for a bit, I eventually had an epiphany. And this happened when I was launching the Hog horizontally. What I realized was the game isn't really simulating an explosion like the graphics may lead you to believe. It's taking the slider input as an angle and doing some basic trigonometry to calculate which direction the Hog should launch in. Flash didn't have a built-in physics system to use, so browser games back then would have to create their own ways of doing things. So, after brushing up on some high school math, alright, maybe I didn't pass high school math, I was starting to get really close. I did a lot of side-by-side comparisons to dial in the values for things like how much acceleration is lost when the Hog bounces off a wall or a floor, and how high the Hog goes with different amounts of grenades, as well as how fast it travels. I was able to get the gameplay dialed in real close to the original. Close enough that once I started bringing in the original levels, I was able to beat all of them. Let's talk about that. So, to truly recreate this game in Unity, I had to recreate the placement of all of these Engineers in each level of the game. And the best way I could think to do that was to play and beat Warthog launch and use the footage as reference. So I did exactly that. Twice, actually. It was a bit of a struggle, to be honest. In both cases, I finished level 40, but I couldn't finish that secret rainbow level, so we're just going to pretend that didn't exist.
And it also has an impossible bonus level if you do something.
Is it possible? Because I tried for quite a bit to beat that rainbow level.
I haven't, so I don't think so.
So it's not even validated.
No, it's a troll level, basically.
Once I had all that footage to refer back to, I manually placed each Engineer in all 40 levels and made sure to test out each level as I was doing them to make sure they were possible to beat. There were a couple of things left to do to make this game feel like a complete package. I added this tutorial screen that appears when you first start the game to tell you how to play. I also added a little stats/credit screen that you can access at any time to see how much time you've wasted, among some other cool stats. This was in both original games as well. I also added some cool particle effects for things like impacts, Engineer kills, and the explosions. To give the scene a little more depth and life, I added some particle effects to make it look like there's some dust being kicked up on the ground. I used this particle effect closer to the camera, but I didn't want to bog the scene down with an insane amount of particles. This is just a browser game after all. So I made this custom shader that generates random noise and scrolls it. It's a way to get a similar effect, but a lot faster. So I placed this shader on a couple of planes, and now the hills in the background look a little more alive as well. I added some sound effects for the hog collisions as well as explosions. And there we go. After creating some new UI elements and slapping those on there too, this project was starting to look pretty well finished. Now there is one glaring omission from the title screen. It's missing Stuntmutt's Master Chief drawing from his 117 webcomic. Now, I didn't feel right just including this without his permission, so Bull helped me track him down, and here we go. This is the cherry on top. And so, I present to you Warthog Launch Anniversary Edition. You can play it now on my itch page. Now, before I release it, there's one person that I wanted to check it out first. You might hate this.
I did some work in Unity recently, and I was...
As luck would have it, Bull happens to be a software tester now. He offered to test the game out and give me some feedback.
This feels a bit blurry almost. I'm not sure why. You can pile up the grenades. They're not very visible, very small and tiny. The maximum pile of grenades is literally the only thing we're gonna use. Who made this stupid game? What is even the challenge here? I don't know. Who would think this is fun at all? The engineer is very potato. There we go. I think there are 30 levels. I call bullshit. There's no way I made something that looked this difficult. If I go... There we go. Voila. Oh no, 31. Oh no, no. Are there 40 levels? Oh crap.
I'll take that as a seal of approval.
Why did I make so many levels? Holy shit.
There's really no reason to play this over the original Flash game that Bull made 20 years ago. I just thought this would be a fun little way to honor it. If there's one thing to take away from this video, it's that you should make cool things and put them out into the world. Even if your creations seem insignificant to you, they could be inspirational to others. Or maybe you should just do it on the off chance Microsoft wants to send you an Xbox, I don't know. Huge shout out to Bull for being a part of this video, and thank you for watching.